So just over a year ago now, I think it was the first time that I mentioned that I wanted to do some fundamentals videos to do with antenna design and antenna building, and produce these on the whiteboard. Just really short videos, 5 minutes in length, just discussing some of the the technical aspects to antenna design, starting at the very basics, wavelength, and working your way up. What does propagation mean, transmission line means, and all that sort of thing. So one thing that has stopped me from doing that is that my workshop here is so small, and I've got this whiteboard, but there's just nowhere for me to put it on the wall. So I did think about laying it flat on the workbench here, but that just had all kinds of problems to do with lighting and everything else, and to be perfectly honest with you, it would have looked a little bit boring. So I came across a few videos where people are actually writing directly onto glass and facing the camera, and they're either using mirrors or doing it in post-editing, where they flipped it to a mirror image so you could actually see the writing the correct way around as they wrote it on the glass. And I just thought that was a much better way of actually doing fundamentals videos, where you've got to do some writing on the board as well, and that way you're not looking at the person's back of their head when they turn to write on the whiteboard. And also I could use my shotgun mic, so I didn't have to get one of those little lapel mics, so it would have worked out a lot better in here to actually use something like that, because I could just have it set up on the bench here and just write away, and then when I finish shooting that video, just put it to one side. So that's what I've decided to do. And I came across this video on YouTube called Through the Looking Glass, where this physics teacher had set up this so-called Through the Looking Glass whiteboard, where it was just pure glass for his students to actually watch him doing it in class, and also he could broadcast over the internet live so people could tune in to his lectures as well. Now, of course, because he also had a live audience, he needed to flip it round in real time, so he had a mirror in the classroom, and the people who were actually sat in the room with him were actually watching it on a monitor, not directly at him. But I thought that was a really good way of doing it, although I don't think he was the first. He said it was his idea, but there are some blogs and a couple of other videos that predate his video. But I don't need to use mirrors or anything like that because I haven't got a live audience. I can do it all in post-production. It was just actually constructing the thing from scratch. So I've done a short video. I've just documented myself as I've been going along building it, and then you'll see it at the end. And I think it's come out quite well, and I look forward to doing some excellent fundamentals videos with you. I've just got to start writing some now. So to actually make this then, what I've done, I've purchased a piece of clear perspex that's 6mm thick, and it's 600mm by 480mm, and I've purchased a reel of LEDs here. They're a white LED, and I think this reel cost about £7 free shipping. So these two things, the perspex and the LEDs, are the only things that I've actually purchased. Well, everything else that I'm going to use in this build I've had for a while, just been saving, or I've recycled from other things. And the other things I'm going to be using here, I've got some PVC pipe, and I've got some thinner aluminium pipe here, and I've also got these that I'm going to use as the base to actually make a frame to mount the perspex on. And these are the base from an old clothes rail. Originally it had wheels on the bottom here and here, but I've used them in something else. And I've also got the two connecting rods that actually connect these two bases together. So I'm going to cut these down so it's the same length as the clear perspex. Now, there are a few videos on YouTube showing the operation of these, but there isn't one that I've found which actually shows you how to build it from scratch. Now, what I actually need to do is have a strip of LEDs all the way around the area of the perspex, so it illuminates the perspex itself. So these strip of LEDs are designed to actually stick. There's some double-sided tape on here to actually stick to the ceiling or the walls and illuminate outwards. But what I actually need to do is get the LEDs to illuminate inwards to actually light up perspex itself. So what I'm actually thinking about doing is every so often put a little dab of epoxy as far away in between each LED as possible, because they don't get really hot but they do get warm, and I don't want it to actually melt the epoxy, because if you melt the epoxy back up it will become tacky again and then they'll become loose. So just a dab every so often and slowly work my way around the edge of the perspex until I've got the length that I need, and cut it off, and hopefully that'll do the job of holding the LEDs in place. So a couple of things that I've changed. I didn't end up using epoxy to hold the LED strips in place. I tried it down one side of the board here and it wasn't doing a very good job. It was extremely messy. But what I've ended up using is masking tape, and I've just masked it off, holding it down on all the sides, and then I've built up a few layers of this using my fingernail, my thumbnail, to actually get in there and stick it down well, and it's actually turned out quite well. And something else that I've done as well, you can remove this silicone protective surface on here, so you can actually get in there and just peel it away, and that way I've managed to get the LEDs quite flush down the sides. So now when you switch it on, the LEDs do a really good job of flooding that perspex there. It's quite uniform. It's worked out a lot better than I thought it would. So now what I'm going to do is get to actually mounting this in the frame that I'm constructing for the board itself. So I'm making a frame out of this white PVC pipe here to actually hold the perspex, and I don't want to actually end up using too much glue. So what I'm actually done is I've cut this PVC pipe to length, and I've cut these little notches out so these will fit in the frame that I've just constructed, and I've cut a line all the way down the centre best I can, because I've only done this with my Dremel tool. And now I've got a little piece of sandpaper down the middle, and I'm just running this backwards and forwards to try and get the inside as smooth as I possibly can. Now this will allow me to hold the perspex in place using the actual pipe much like a vise, and also it'll help trap any excess light. I only want the light to be visible through the perspex, so I don't want it leaking out of the sides at all. So something that I've found that actually helps me to get this on over the perspex is I've used a slightly larger diameter piece of pipe in the middle to stretch it out, and then I get a heat gun and I just gently warm up the outside of the white plastic pipe and just leave it to stand for 10 minutes, and then what happens, I can remove this pipe, and it's got a slightly bigger gap, so it's easier to get over and onto the perspex. So now when I've removed the thicker diameter pipe, I've now got this gap of probably about 5mm running down here, so it's much easier to get on and over the top of the perspex. So now that I've got it on its stand, what I'm actually going to go ahead and do now is tidy up these corners here. I could have done a little bit of a better job and angled them, but really, you know, I'm just going to fill them with some epoxy putty, because I'm going to give them a light sand, and I'm going to spray all this frame black. And I also actually want to block off the bottom here, because I'm not sure whether I'm going to have the power supply hiding behind that as well, but I could always have that off to the side if I wanted to, but I'm just going to block the bottom off here with some wood. Okay, so here is the finished whiteboard. I think it's come out pretty well. One thing I would note though is I am going to look out for a piece of toughened glass for this. I'm going to do away with the perspex. You can probably see a few scratches here and there, and they did not show up previous to me actually illuminating them, and if I have the lights off and look at the perspex, you can't see those at all, they're not visible. So that's probably a downside of having perspex rather than glass. And you may also be able to see this light film that's on there, and that's come from these fluorescent markers that I did purchase to actually use with this board. But these ones are quite cheap and they leave this film on there, although to be fair, you can't see that film on a normal whiteboard. And there are some more expensive ones off Amazon that guarantee not to leave that film, so I'll have to purchase some of those as well. So let's write something then. I've just got a normal dry white marker here. It's actually green, And of course it comes out blue under the lighting here, but it's actually showing up pretty well. So let's try it with a red. And red works pretty well, although it looks a bit orange. It's still showing up quite well on that board there. So next we'll try a black pen. And I've got a blue pen. And finally I've got this thin tipped red pen. So I think the actual green and the blue tend to come out the best, so just give this another test. Just draw a wave here. So hopefully you found that interesting how I actually put all this together. It's pretty simple really, and flipping it around in Sony Vegas is no trouble at all. It's just a simple right click with the mouse. So I'll get on with actually writing some tutorials, and I'll probably start off with a tutorial just explaining what is a wavelength, because I think that's really important as a starting block for something like this. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, it does help. And any comments, drop them below. Any constructive ideas, especially if you think I can do something to improve this. I'm already going to change the perspex for some glass, but any other suggestions that may improve the board itself. So like I said, hopefully you found this interesting, and hopefully you'll join me for the next one.